Okay. We want to welcome all of you to our yearly training for the SUP leaders and boards from Utah County South down into Arizona, Nevada. And so to begin the meeting, we'd like to ask Don Anderson to give us an invocation. Then we'll have LaRon Taylor, our AVP from Utah County South, do the pledge. So Don. You're muted, Don. Don, it's not coming through.
Don, get Erlene to unmute you.
I cannot unmute. I can mute, but I can't unmute.
Yeah, his wife Erlene can though, if she's there.
Did you try hitting the space bar, Don?
Well, maybe Harold, we could have someone else give the prayer. And
Okay. Don, are you there? If not, Wayne, would you give the prayer, please?
Sure. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to come before thee this morning in capacity of a training meeting for officers and executives of the Sons of Utah Pioneers. We're grateful for this great organization, for all that it does in alerting us to the great principles that our pioneer ancestors espoused and emulated in their lives. We're grateful for the gospel, grateful for the great atoning sacrifice of thy Son. We thank thee for the prophet Joseph Smith and his role in the restoration and bringing forth the Book of Mormon. We're grateful for our living prophet and those who serve with him. And we thank thee for their testimonies, their faith, and their wisdom and inspired messages. Bless us this day as we are being trained, that we'll be receptive to those things that are being taught, that we will implement them, that we will do our part to enhance and improve this great society and make it better and bring more into the advantage of being a part of it. We thank thee for those who are volunteering their time and their energy to lead the Sons of Utah Pioneers at chapter levels, as AVPs, and as our National Executive Council. Watch over, bless, and protect them. Now we offer this prayer in gratitude and humility, asking for thy blessing to be upon this meeting. And we do so in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Good job, John. So everyone, will you please arise and face your computer and salute the flag in the proper manner and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our training today will be divided up into 15-minute segments, except for the national, and they'll take 3 15-minute segments. John is there, Nate, and Larry. So all three Our president, past president, and president-elect are all there. Tom's there, our secretary for the board, and John Elgrim, a treasurer for the board. We appreciate all of those. What we will be doing first is we'll be discussing utilizing our SUP boards, after which Dan Adams from the Utah County North will be talking about member involvement through special activities. Then down in Hurricane, we've got David Eisen talking about attracting members in their 50s and 60s. Since many of us are getting a little long in the tooth, we're trying to find some a little younger. And then our segment will end with Derek Rowley, Mr. SUP Online, talking about communication in various forms and visibility and all that. So I will begin and see if I can make this thing work the way John told me it would. So here goes my first one on utilizing our SUP boards. Well, share screen now.
Anybody wants any paper or pencil?
Okay, everything that we do on a local chapter needs to make sure that we align with the overall mission statement of the SUP. SUP helps us to reach back in history to receive the emotional support we need today. And boy, do we need it today more than ever. We've got modern pioneers in every chapter. We're about to do one for someone. Unfortunately, he passed away right before we got the award to him. Those same qualities to the youth. One thing board members can do is, for instance, our board has somebody in charge of the pioneer essays from the 7 elementary schools here. And what he does, instead of trying it all himself, he gets 5 or 6 others of our older members who can read and rank those things. And then we involve 6 or 8 people in that one thing that might not be involved in something else. They pick 3 winners from each school and get money for their winning essays. The overall winner gets a $50 plus a year's subscription to the Pioneer magazine. Plus he presents his essay at our July 24th town meeting. And so that way we get to involve more. Well, that went one too many. Anyway, your AVP is the liaison between national and the local boards. Now you can set up your boards the way you would like. I mean, whether it's firesides or breakfast or scholarship or newspaper, whatever like that, you can have as many board members as you can find meaningful assignments for them. But a successful year at our SUP level depends on our being able to use our boards properly. Now, the $64 question is, how do I utilize our SUP board? We know that good things don't just happen by accident. It takes a lot of good preparation. And so good ideas come from ordinary board members simply carrying out their job and getting their ideas across. Now, as we're going along, we ask you, there's going to be a series of bunch of questions here. Any question that you have or any answer for somebody else's question, we invite you to share with us. we can spice up our board meetings sometimes with, it doesn't take, fireworks to spice it up. We can do that simply by doing something as simple as having a Pioneer Minute. And we have a Pioneer Minute at the beginning of each of our board meetings. And then it's put in the newsletter, so it's sent out to our entire membership of our chapter, so that they get to introduced to some of these pioneer ancestors also. As leaders, we have to have a vision of where we want our chapter to go, but our vision should include the vision of our board members and other team members. And we need to ask, am I really involving those people, or do I act like I'm a literal descendant of Aaron and don't need any counseling? So we want to make sure that we get the advice of all of our board members on the things that we're working on. Our chapter, for instance, has been very active with treks and monuments, which involve several of our members like that. Some who may have lived here in southern Utah 30 or 40 years may not realize that there's a rich historical bunch of sites here in Iron and Washington County. And one of our board members, for instance, put together a list of about 100 sites that then can be made into treks from at least those two counties, and also those from Nevada coming up into Washington County. But those lists we send out to our members, and then they can choose the kinds of treks that they'd like to go on. But those who are too old for treks or some of those things like that, at least can be involved in potlucks, dinners, or firesides. But good leaders don't have to have all the good ideas. All of us are smarter than any of us alone. We just simply have to be good motivators. Good discussions in our board meetings generate and refine ideas that we start with. And then when all discussion is over at the board meeting, that's when the action begins. Now, getting the right people for our board is our most important job. For that determines what happens the following 12 months for this chapter. Sometimes, occasionally you get a board member that's not performing, and that sort of constipates the process a little bit. But anyway, we need to find new board members with fresh ideas. I once had lunch with former Governor Gal Rampton and asked him, what do you do when you've got people who are not performing and doing their jobs? And he sounded like Calvin Coolidge when he said, where'd he go? If you don't have a member of your board who's performing, you need to fire him with enthusiasm, or fire him with enthusiasm. And that sounds just like Governor Rampton, doesn't it?
Well said.
Now, sometimes we make mistakes in orienting new board members, and we tell them, oh, this job is easy, it won't take much time. And what we've just done is we've told him we don't expect very much from him. And unfortunately, when we orient somebody like that, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because they don't do much sometimes. We need to learn how to orient these people properly. And for instance, have you looked at the job descriptions that we have for orienting board members? And we have about a 6-page thing from National that talks about different board members that you may have on a local level and orienting those. Now, one problem we have is sometimes we get a board member, it's a little bit shy. How do we get him to participate? Again, what do I have to rub to release the Jenny or the genius in our board? Or sometimes we got board members that can talk a lot but don't do a lot. Or there's some that dream a lot but don't do much. So we have to fill in for them. One important thing that we need to do in our chapters when we find that we've got people who aren't participating in some of the things that we're doing is we simply need to one of two things, make them feel important. And one of the things that our chapter has done, we've had, for instance, Kent Hugh, who has gone around to many of our members who are attending our meetings like that. And he tries to make them feel important, even though sometimes health-wise they can't join us. But we learn a lot from talking to members who don't attend our meetings, and sometimes we need to modify what we're doing so that we can include them too. One thing that we've discovered is if you've got a good secretary who can get the minutes out, and I noticed we had Tom Powell online there. He's our national secretary. Boy, I don't know if he takes shorthand or not, but he's got the most accurate minutes I've ever seen. But those minutes remind us of things that we may have forgotten. It reminds us of things that we need to get done before the next meeting. Anyway, if you just send out a boilerplate agenda, sometimes just get the same old thing every board. But if you would check with your board members and find out what they want to cover, what business they have for our meeting, then and then how long they would like to spend on that particular thing, then we can have a much more effective meeting that way. And otherwise, if we're not too careful, our meeting can turn into a bunch of sky punts going off in different directions. Now that's,
Look, come here.
I thought I'd
Loki, stop fucking puking. Come here, Loki. Come here.
repeated that one. There we go. Anyway, any questions that you have or any comments on any of that, would like you to share with us, and I'll take off screen sharing and we'll go back to, if I can get my mouse to work. There we go. Okay, any questions that you have or any successes that you've had on some of the things you'd like to share with us?
I had a question. You came up with the description for the different board members. I'm
Right.
assuming that would be on the national website, or where would we get a copy of those is what my question is.
John, do we have those on the national website? I'm not sure. I know I've got a hard copy.
Yeah.
They are? Okay. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Harold,
Yes, sir.
you pointed out one thing that just about knocked me off my chair. You said we approach our board members telling them, oh, there's not much to this. It'll be easy. I've been doing that for years, and you're right. It is self-fulfilling.
It is.
So I appreciate you pointing that out. I'm going to change my approach.
Good. Well, I went to a guy once and I explained what it was and he still accepted. And then he became our president. Then when it came time for a symposium here in Cedar, who did he get? He got me, because I'd really given him the $100 treatment on what you're supposed to do when you're fulfilling a job in the SUP.
That was a great symposium, Harold.
Thank you. And then he got me again at the same meeting where Wayne was elected national president, and I was in charge of our encampment. So the guy bit me twice for getting him once. So,
What around comes around.
yeah. Other questions or comments?
Harold, I think I'd just make the comment that a successful chapter, I feel, starts with a successful board. And you've pointed out some really great topics, things that we need to do at board. I know that we're all volunteers, but on the other hand, I think we ought to do the business of the Sons of Utah Pioneers in a professional manner, not a sloppy manner, but a well-organized. That's, I think, what a board does. It organizes what the goals and objectives are, as you pointed out, Harold. It keeps the chapter on track. It plans the exciting things, the treks, and the activities. I don't know, some chapters have meals, some don't, but to me, the board just simply needs to feel an administrative responsibility that's not lackadaisical, but more meaningful.
Thank you, Tom. Tom's an old scouter. You can tell he's always prepared. So thanks, Tom. Any other?
If you want to see how a good board operates, come and visit Cedar City Board sometime. I think we have 18 members on our board, don't we, Harold?
Yes.
We have a big chapter, over 100 members, but it's good to have a fourth or a fifth of your membership participating on the board if you can.
And then some of those, I noticed we had Royce and Kevin online a minute ago.
Kevin.
They have really done a fantastic job of identifying all the monuments that we have around, and they've got the GPS and all the stuff and sent to national. So anybody that comes to Iron County that wants to see something, Kevin, what was it, 59 that you've got online right now?
84.
84, wow.
So Harold, I noticed that you're recording this. How are you going to make sure that people that weren't able to make it today see this?
They're recording all three of them. And John, where's that going?
We'll be putting a link to all three of them on our website, SUP 1847, and we'll notify you when those are available.
Perfect, thank you.
And I think, Wayne, your comment on your Cedar City board, I think it'd be interesting to share throughout our whole organization, on occasion, examples or copies, for instance, of the Cedar City agendas, Cedar City minutes. Not every month, but maybe once a year, have 2 or 3 chapters, share with everybody exactly how they're performing, so they can get an idea of maybe what a really good board like Cedar City, how it operates.
Thank you. Any other questions before we turn it over to Dan? Dan and I go back 60 years ago to Georgetown, Massachusetts, where we were young elders together in the same district. That was a long time. We're both a little longer in the tooth now, aren't we, Dan?
That's true. That is so true. Dan, I know Dan from American Fork. We were band parents together.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions on the first one, we will move on to Dan's presentation and turn it to him.
Okay, John, guide me through how to share this.
You should have a little green thing at the bottom of your screen that says share. Go to
Yeah, I've got that.
click that and you're on.
It may give you an option of several screens to share. You click on which screen you want to share.
Okay.
John Elgrim, is sharing available to him?
Everybody that wants to can share. So all he needs to do is Push that
Okay.
button, pick the screen that he wants on his desktop, and then share screen.
All right, are you seeing my screen now?
No,
No.
Hmm.
there's, once you've got that on there up at the top, there should be says share screen. Or, no, it's right down at the bottom of your screen. Left side, it says share.
Mine's in the middle.
I've got share screen.
Yes.
It says share and has a green arrow in it, an arrow with a green spot around it.
I've
Right in the
clicked
middle on the
on,
bottom.
I've clicked on screen 2. Should I go to 1?
No, down at the bottom, to the right or in the screen, you'll see there's a button that says share. There you go.
There you
Got it.
All right, there we
You
go.
got it.
You're
Okay. All right. Well, folks, my assignment from Harold was to discuss member involvement in special activities. We've had a great presentation about involving our board members, and a lot of our board members are assigned to manage different special activities, but there are special activities available to all of our members through the national organization as well. And so one of the important points that I wanted to point out is that by having our members involved in special activities, I believe it will ensure greater camaraderie and lasting friendships within the chapter. I think another thing that it will do will help to promote pioneer values within the chapters, to work hard and to serve others. And it will be appealing to new members. Let's see. So what are the special activities that we're talking about? Well, a special activity are activities held outside of the monthly chapter meetings, such as I've noted on the screen here, scholarship programs. We do different things with monuments. We're cleaning and repairing monuments. We're constructing monuments. We're going on treks. We have service projects. We attend the National Encampment. We have chapter symposiums. We have the National Symposium. We have the great Super Duper Day up at the Heritage Park. We have other events such as collaborative events with either sponsoring it ourselves, the Pioneer Day events. Of course, on the national level would be marching in the parade and the Days of 47 parade, the sunrise service, but there are local 24th activities that are involved with that you're able to maybe collaborate with other groups within your own communities. Okay, let me give you a few examples. The pictures that I have here are mostly from the Timpanogos chapter that I have been involved with for years. But here we have 2 pictures of different years that we have invited our scholarship recipients to come and be recognized and introduced to our chapter. And so we have a generous program that we're dealing with $6,000 to $8,000 a year that we have that are used for scholarships, either academic scholarships or creative arts scholarships. And we have programs for elementary schools as well. So if any of you are interested in new ideas on that, please contact me. Another, when we talk about monuments, cleaning and repairing monuments, here's 3 pictures from previous events that we've done where we're cleaning up and repairing monuments that we're assigned to. And this is a great activity that involves your whole group. I mean, you have a large group that are able to come out and be able to wash or to scrub down or clean off and to mow some weeds around them or whatever. Those are great activities. We also have been involved, and this is a great activity for involvement for constructing monuments. Here's two pictures of previous years where we've been constructing monuments, and these are things that will last forever, and they're, of course, memorializing various events. The one on the left is talking about memorializing a grist mill in American Fork. The one on the right, we're building a monument commemorating the 120 homes in Pleasant Grove that were built out of soft rock. The building behind it, you see, is built out of soft rock, or it's tufa construction, which is rock that's found locally there. And we're using some of that same rock as we build this monument. There's chapter treks. Boy, talk about building camaraderie and building friendships. Our most recent trek was the one in the upper left-hand corner. Les Langford is one of our group here today, hosted our chapter at the Timpanogos chapter at his home. He has a wonderful collection of various things that he was sharing with us. The one in the center is our group that went to Topaz down near Delta to the Japanese internment camp. The one in the lower left is a visit to the Pleasant Grove Museum and the park around the museum. And then the center one on the left there is a visit to the Alpine Stake Tabernacle. This was a tour through historic facilities in American Fork. And then, of course, we've just come back, my wife and I, and Sharif Dajani, two couples from the Timpanogos chapter that attended the national trek as we were standing for a picture back at the birthplace in Sharon, Vermont. Another great activity that helps to gather your people together and have meaningful service is 2 service projects we've recently done. Here are 3 headstones of 3 children that were in unmarked graves in American Fork Cemetery. The one on the right is last year, Tabitha's Way, as we have a chapter service project we do twice a year where we collect commodities, and then he's holding a couple of checks that monetary donations that went to Tabitha's Way. Great opportunities for service. Well, of course, we have other activities that promote friendship and developing friendships and camaraderie throughout the national organization, our national encampments. The one on the left is, of course, an entertainment and a dinner. The one on the right was actually up at the Logan encampment, where we were visiting the Logan Tabernacle with Michael Ballum. We have our symposiums, and I'm grateful for the being able to attend and learn from the national symposium. But I think it's also a nice thing. I think Harold mentioned that, of course, you've sponsored chapter symposiums. Lehigh chapter recently had a symposium where they collaborated with the historical archives in Lehigh, had a wonderful presentation for a day, for several hours on a Saturday. What about the Super Duper Day at the Heritage Park? My wife and I are standing in front of a monument there at the Super Duper Day last year, and we've had some wonderful collaborative events that have happened to bring our chapters together in a meaningful activity. And then, of course, marching in the Days of 47 parade. And then we had in the afternoon on the 24th, we actually have events in American Fork in collaboration with the American Fork Daughters of Utah Pioneer Museum. And here I was telling a little bit about loading a hand cart. So in summary, brothers, member involvement in special activities, I believe, will ensure greater camaraderie and lasting friendships among your chapter. It will promote pioneer values within your chapter. I love the pioneer value of hard work, and service to others is another important value that comes from many of these activities. And many of them may be service to ourselves and being able to go and be enriched in the pioneer values from a symposium. And then I think these activities are very appealing to new members. And a little plus on the end there, and it will certainly help the chapter qualify for a National Recognition Award. These are events that I think are essential to have an enriched program. Now, leaders, I know leaders from all different size chapters, you don't try to do all of them all in 1 year. Just start out, first of all, with your basic chapter meetings. And of course, we have the Pioneer Magazine that comes to us through our membership. But then to begin incorporating maybe a scholarship program or even a trek that you would take with your groups. Our Lehigh group, our Mountain Valley chapter up in Heber that I work with, they have a special trek this coming next week, a week on Friday next week, where they're visiting historic homes in Heber City and learning about the pioneers that built those facilities and other monuments in town, and learning about the history of Heber City. So again, special activities are an essential part of a full, well-rounded Sons of Utah Pioneer program, and I'd encourage you to consider that as leaders. Thank you very much, Harold.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan, can I make a comment on one of your photos?
You bet.
Several years ago, the chair of our Tabitha's Way service project took a photo of an individual holding a check, and I demonstrated to the chairman that anybody that one right there, that photograph, I can read the name of the individual, the address, and I can also see the account number of that bank account. And I suggested that that's probably, if it got into the wrong hands, would not be good, simply because it has a bank account number on it.
Okay.
It's kind of a cautionary thing.
Cautionary.
Yeah, it was really easy to blow that picture up in the Timpanogos chapter and take the information off that anybody fishing for information would like to have.
Yep, good point. Any other comments from our group?
Dan, I have one comment, if I may. This is John Elgren.
Okay.
We have had in probably every activity that Nationals had, somebody call in and apologize that they could not attend. This has happened for this training last week, this week. They cannot attend because they have scheduled a chapter trek or chapter activity. So they're unable to attend to the national activity. You all have the copy of our calendar for full year. We'd ask you not to schedule anything over our chapter activities because it makes it so that not everybody can attend what they need to attend.
That's exactly true. They shouldn't have to choose between a chapter event and a national event. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. We'll turn it over to someone else.
Thanks, Dan. We'll go to David Eisen down in Hurricane now.
Thanks, Harold. We didn't talk about time in terms of, we've got about 20 minutes as I look at how much time do you want me to take?
Just cover your subject. That's the main thing.
Sorry?
Just go ahead and cover your subject.
Okay.
5 minutes extra, don't worry about it.
All right.
We'll take 5 minutes off theirs.
All right. Harold had asked me to talk a little bit about the recruitment of younger members in the chapter. I'll be the president of the chapter next year, And we've all been concerned, and I know that the National's been concerned about the lack of young members, because we're all getting older, and I'm just wondering who's going to replace us and continue this organization on. And it's got to be the next generation. And I thought about this, and I watched in the last few months what's happened, and we have a elderly couple, of course, in our chapter in their 80s, and their son-in-law joined the chapter, and he brings them to the chapter meetings each month, and he's done so for the last year. And that's Brad Winder, and his he is probably in his 50s. And as we talked as a board, we've talked about what we could do to get these younger members involved. And so we said that we've got to get these younger members on the board itself and get them involved. And so I talked to Brad and asked him if he would be willing to serve on the board. And at the same time, I asked him to serve as the president-elect. And he was willing to do that. And so he will be on the board and be the chapter president 2 years from now, or a year from now. And as we looked at it, there's another one, we talked about it, about recruiting younger members. And one of our other members on the board had given me the name of Lance Hutchings. And he said he had talked to Lance, they're in the same ward, and talked to Lance a couple of years ago, and Lance said, yeah, I'd be interested, but it was not a follow-up. And so I contacted Lance. He's a electrical contractor here in the area. And he said, yeah, he said, I've been interested in it, and I'd like to join up. So I, of course, took him an application. And again, at the same time, I asked him if he would be interested or willing to serve on our board. And he said, yeah, he would. He says the SUP has got a great mission, and so he with Brad, and Brad brought one of his other friends to our meeting on Thursday night, where we honored two modern day pioneers, Carl Wadsworth and Laura Thomas. And so they brought another one. And what I'm finding is that this next generation, and Lance is in his mid-40s, it's going to be a little tough with these 40s, 50-year-olds and early 60-year-olds that are working. But we've got to figure out a way, and we'll be discussing this as we go forward, how we can accommodate them. And we've generally had our board meetings at 4:30 on the first Monday of each month. And I think that as we talk with them, we're going to have to change that and allow them to finish their work. And we will have to change our time of our board meetings to accommodate them and go from there. Anyway, he attended his first meeting the other night. I haven't had a chance to talk to Lance. And he and Brad both were not able to attend the meeting today. And they had other commitments. And I think that's one of the other things that we need to consider, is that these young fathers, they've got a lot of stuff going on with their work and with their families. And we're going to have a lot of discussions on how to approach this next generation, which will allow them to become involved in our activities and in the boards and the things that we're doing, and basically be converted to our mission. And I think that if we can come up with, that they will come up with ways, and I think we need to listen very carefully to what they have to tell us about how to allow that generation to become actively involved. Because we've had the time, we've got the time, and they have not had the time. and don't have the time that we have. And so we need to very carefully consider their recommendations of how they can be more actively involved in the chapter. Not only actively involved, but I love both of the presentations before. Thank you very much on the board and on the activities. And to solicit from them, what kind of things would they be interested in and their families be interested in terms of treks, other activities. We've got on Saturday, we've got our first annual SUP picnic. And we'll do a Dutch oven luncheon, and families can come and enjoy that, a few games for the kids. But we'll expand from that on and figure out ways to involve these young fathers and their families. And so we're going to be listening carefully to what they want to do and how it should be carried out. And that's one of the big things right there. Let's see. So right now we've had one lifetime member, been a member for years. I've never seen him to a chapter meeting. And so I was at a social a couple of weeks ago, and he was there. I sat down at his table and we visited for a minute, and I asked him, I said, how would you feel? He's a dentist and been very active. He's been stake presidency. He's currently an Elders Quorum president. How would you feel about serving on our board? And he said, yeah. He says, I'll do that. And so, and he's in his 50s, still practicing. But I think the key too, and when you talked about boards, Harold, the importance of orienting them properly and helping them understand what their responsibilities will be on the board. And so we've got 4 or 5 new members of our board that will be in their 40s and 50s. And it'll bring our board up to probably around 14 or 15. And we're looking forward to having them because I've told them when I asked them to serve, I said, you know, we're getting older, we're dying, and we need, in order to preserve and to carry on this mission of this organization, we really need the younger generation to be involved. And I think that they understand that, and we'll see how that goes. And so, like I say, my questions to them is going to be what do we need to do differently, and in terms of activities, treks, whatever it may be, and to structure our program so that it takes in this younger generation and their families. And that's the things that we're going to have to do. Any questions or comments?
Dave, I have one. One of our chapters used to have entire families. They would invite entire families out to their chapter meeting, the dinner, what is usually a dinner meeting.
Right.
Occasionally they would invite entire families out, and it would be centered around some pioneer skill. And it attracted a lot of younger people in just the subject matter alone. Drew a lot of younger people. We also had the Maple Mountain chapter has been focusing on that question that you have about the younger people. Brunel, are you listening? Why don't you just mention what you have done already?
Well, I almost daresn't do it because it takes longer discussion than what we've got. But the biggest question we've had, can you hear me okay, Laurent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The biggest question that we've had is this an old man's club, or is this a Sons of Utah Pioneers Club, which includes all sons? And it appears to us that it's basically an old man's club. This is where stake presidents go when they retire. This is when people retire from active generating, money for their families. That's, the SUP is a great destination. And so the model appears, from, I'm a marketing guy, and it appears to me that the model is designed as it's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. The minimum viable product is your monthly meeting, your dinner, your speaker, little effort, very little investment, and it's a place where old people can go. And we're taking a real hard look at what are the pain points that young fathers or middle-aged fathers are facing in their families, in their business, in society. What are the real pain points, and how can the SUP help address those pain points? And so we're in the process right now of having some rather deep discussions about that. We're not trying to throw away what's already there, but we're trying to say, what more could we do to actually help the young fathers and their families to address modern day challenges? We're talking about modern day pioneers. That's probably enough for now, Laurent, but that's kind of where we are. And we're in the process of putting together a focus group to have a very serious discussion about how can we help solve the pain of younger fathers rather than just inviting them to a dinner.
That's thank you very much. That's an excellent point, and it's the thing that we've been concerned about. We'd be very, very interested in your results from your focus groups, and share that with us as we go forward, because there'll be things that we can implement that will involve these younger brethren and their families, and so that's what we're really trying to get to happen.
David, where are you located?
In Hurricane.
Oh, that's a bit of a drive. I was going to invite you to our focus group.
That's okay. I'm available to travel.
Okay.
So where are you at? Which chapter?
In Mapleton, Utah County.
All right. That's a 3-hour drive, 3.5-hour drive. I can do that. So I would love to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dave, I'd make a comment too. We kind of sometimes get in our minds that the younger men are too busy with their families and their employment and so forth, and we maybe fear asking them. But one of the best examples of a younger man joining this organization, becoming very successful, was one of our past national presidents, Brad Clayton.
Right.
And I've heard his testimony a couple of times. And he's a firm believer that even though he had a family, he had employment, he made it happen very successly. Right. And I say to myself, those are the type of guys that we've got to inspire to be our leadership. We have our Timpanogos chapter president, Jason Nelson, in this meeting. And Jason, you're, in my book, you're the generation that we and Jason's our current chapter president, but he's the perfect example of a guy that has a wonderful family, beautiful family, is employed in life, and yet very successful as a chapter president.
Right. And that's a great point. And I think that what's happened in those cases is that those individuals, and that's what I would like to do with these new members that we have coming on, is to help them be converted to our mission. And it parallels, of course, the church, but be converted to that mission. And if they're converted to the mission and we get them working and involved, then I think that they will stay. They will stay with it. So as have the examples that you discussed.
And Brother Isom, this is Rick Erickson from the Cotton Mission chapter here.
Yeah,
I'm in that demographic as well. And I mean, I respect tremendously Brother Isom, and of course, I've been fortunate working with Brother Humphrey and Brother Haas and Brother Jensen. The real issue is always about scheduling for us.
right.
My youngest is currently 18, and I'm serving on a high council, and I'm a full-time county prosecutor here.
Right.
And it's just making those little accommodations. I think the men that you're speaking of, and who spoke just a second ago, the individuals like Brother Clayton, success stories, the cream will rise to the top, but they just have to be given the opportunity of making those small concessions as far as time and things that will enable them to actually perform to the fullest and the best of their abilities.
Right.
If there's so many constraints, and I've been blessed, like I said before, working with these gentlemen, with these brethren. For me to come in, there's always that fear of, well, I don't want to rock the boat, because you have, individuals who've been doing this a lot longer than I have, who are more seasoned in the gospel, more seasoned in terms of their experience. I don't want to come in there and look like, well, I want me, you guys have to adjust for me. None of us want to do that. But if we can keep those kind of things in mind, I think as far as other chapters goes, making these, situations available, like meeting times, things along those lines, because a lot of us can't go in the middle of the week. That's all I had really to say, President. So thank you.
That excellent point, and we talked about that in our particular board. With the number of younger people that we're going to have on it, we are going to have to make some time changes. And there's just little things like this, and I appreciate your comments on that. Little things like that will allow them to more fully participate.
David,
Shirley,
David,
yeah,
this is Jerry Buckner. I
Hi,
wrote
Jerry.
down a suggestion I was going to bring up at the board meeting, but then maybe I should share it right now. My wife and I spent 30 months out at the handcart sites over a period of 4 years. And one of the things that we did often was dress up as Ephraim Hanks and tell his story. And the kids absolutely loved it because, in my case, I have a full leather outfit with a tomahawk and a coonskin cap and the fox. And the kids were just captivated with Ephraim Hanks and his story. And there's so many wonderful things that they learn from that experience. And I was just going to tell you, I'd be willing to do that some night with a family night, to have the kids come and enjoy Ephraim Hanks. So there you go.
that'd be great. That would be great. Thanks, Jerry. Shirley, I think I've taken more than my share of time, but I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, David. Okay, we will now go a little further south to St. George to Derek Rowley. Derek's been sick the last couple of days. He got a flu shot that knocked him for a loop. Are you there, Derek? Derek, are you there? If not, we will, I guess, skip that part, but time-wise, we're okay. We're just approaching 10 o'clock here.
Derek has not come on at all today, so.
Yes, well, he was quite sick when I talked to him last night. He was hoping he'd be able to do it today. Well, let's take about 2 minutes and then we'll turn it over to National. John, are you doing it, or are you having one of your compatriots doing it?
President Clayton.
I will. I'm sorry, John.
No, past President Larry will be doing it.
Larry's the chair on this one, but we'll go from there.
Whatever.
No, John Clayton is the one who is president. He's made some assignments for us, so I think
Gotcha.
turned over to John, and he'll direct it as national presentations.
Thank you, Larry. I'm going to ask Larry to give a presentation of the national calendar to us, and then I'm going to have Nate Pierce give us a information about the progress awards or awards of excellence for the chapters. And both of these are, I think, very important for you to know about. In the scouting, Tom will attest to this. We had quality unit awards, and we had checklists that we wanted to work off that made us a good unit. And if you followed those checklists, you're doing some of the things that you should be doing. So that's why I want Nate to go over that. And then I will follow up with some of the things that we have been doing on national and some of our visions and ideas that we're going to do at that point. Then we'll turn it back to you, Shirley. Larry?
Hey, John, do you want to do finances as well, or we're not?
Oh, yeah, finances. I forgot, John. John will do finances after Nate.
Okay. And I'm going to keep mine fairly short. John Elgren already took the main element that I felt was of greatest significance, and that is the fact that we do have a national calendar. And we try to do those things on a national basis that can't be done easily on a chapter or order basis. And as a result, we feel like that they're very valuable. We also feel like it would be useful for each of you to know the meetings that we are having, not that you need to attend them, but so that you know that they're there. So if you have an issue that needs to be raised, you say, I wish I could get this in front of the national leadership, how could that happen and how timely would it be? Up on the screen, you'll see two national calendars. The one that's superimposed, the first one is the 2022 calendar, the remainder of the year. And the reason that I have that up there is twofold. One, first of all, to show you the kinds of meetings that we're having. First of all, over on the right-hand side there, it says the Executive Council meeting, which is the meeting of 5 of us. That takes in the president, which is John, of course. It takes in the president-elect, which is Nate, and then the past president, which I am currently in that position. We also have in that meeting our national treasurer, who is John Elgren, and our national secretary, which is our dear friend Tom Powell, who takes copious notes of this meeting. And I was grateful people recognize those because they are so valuable. So every month, just be aware that on the first and third Wednesdays, this committee, this National Council, will be meeting at 4:30. If there's items that you would like to have brought forward on the agenda for any reason, from even a chapter level or if you can channel that through the vice presidents or directly to us, we will try to ensure that those items are covered. In addition, we have every month a board meeting, which is the national board. And so if there's items that you want presented before the board, every month that boarding meeting will be held, usually on the third Wednesday is when that's, or the third Wednesday. Looking on the remainder of this year, the main items on the calendar that you should be aware of is these training sessions which are going on. We're currently doing the October 22nd one you see there, which covers Utah County, Utah South, and Arizona, which takes in Nevada and so on. We have one additional one, which will be on the 27th, which is a Thursday night, and that takes in the Salt Lake areas, Twila County, and so on. Every month, we also have a magazine editorial board meeting at 6 p.m. And that's held on generally the first Wednesday as well. And that's when items are covered, specifically formulating the 4 publications that are to come out each year on Pioneer Magazine. Let me just tout that committee is an outstanding committee, and hopefully you have enjoyed the product that they have been generating for us each year. I mean, each or 4 times a year. The other item for this year that I wanted you to be aware of is on December 7th, we have our Christmas dinner. It's the national board meeting as well at 6 p.m. It's held up at the national office at national facility, and that's always a great event. We have a nice dinner and we have some good entertainment, and we want you to feel comfortable about attending that. There is a cost to it, but it's well worth is there a cost to that, John? I take that back.
Yes, there is for the dinner.
I couldn't remember. I was thinking there was, but I just want you to have that on your calendar. Now, John had mentioned our desire really is that you don't overschedule the national events, particularly those that will affect the chapters. These ones that I've mentioned are probably not those, but I'd like to turn to 2023, which is a preliminary agenda, and all this material is available to you, has been sent out. It's also up on the national website. You have access to it as well.
Larry,
Yes.
the second page, the 23, I can't find that on the national site. It just ends in 22.
Yeah, it hasn't been posted yet because it's preliminary. This is the one that I'm showing you right now, which will be sent out.
Okay.
And I wanted to just highlight a couple of things, but those are the main scheduled events that we have on a not national basis, and you will have a copy of that in hand for each of you. And I think the things that jump out, other than those that have already been mentioned, is I want to mention that 4 times a year we also have what we call the Past President's Council. We will be having one of those this coming Saturday, and all of those who are still living, who are past presidents. We meet with them on a Saturday afternoon. We actually have a luncheon together, and we use them as a counsel and a resource for all of us, for all of the National SUP organization, and get some tremendous feedback from them. And if there are items that you as chapter presidents would say, hey, we'd really like this to be provided to, or them to be made aware of, this particular council, the past president's council, feel free to get that information to us at National too, and we'll make sure that that's on the agenda. But you can see when those are listed, that doesn't impact any of you. That's not something that you have to feel comfortable not scheduling over. But just know if you have some of those who are in your organizations and you schedule something, we will encourage them to be to that council meeting rather than your event if you do schedule it. The main months, I viewed them as main months when I have been involved in the chapter organization. Other organizations or leadership areas of SUP are the months of April are very busy. The months of July are very busy. And so if you just jump down and look at April for a minute, you'll notice that's when we start our nominations for the 2023 president-elect. And in line with that, we hope that all of you are looking in your chapters and in SUP as a whole, and hopefully will help identify individuals that say, this is a person that really ought to consider running and campaigning to become the next national president-elect and national president for 2024.
That's wrong on there.
That's right. But that nomination process begins during the month of April. So that we can have those put together and prepared to present to the whole organization in the June timeframe. But in addition to that, in April, on the 15th of April, we have scheduled a cleanup day at the national office. That's a 3-hour cleanup day, and we provide hot dogs and treats, really lunch at the end of that event. It's an event it's really a fun place to bond with other people that are in the national organization. Everybody is invited. The blessing that it is, it allows us to do, depending on the number of resources that show up, us to do a tremendous amount of cleanup and repair on the national office and the national grounds to make it look just stellar and beautiful. And we've had some great work there I've been there the last 3 years, and it's just been wonderful to see the participation from the various chapters that have come up and spent 3 hours there, had an enjoyable time together, but also making a major impact on how the Sons of Utah Pioneers looks as a national organization. It also helps reduce a tremendous amount of the costs that we would have to expend to have a lot of this work done otherwise. So it's a great service project. It's even a great service project, I think, for an event that you could have a chapter sponsored. Say, let's go up and help on some cleanup work. And we've had good representation from many of the chapters, and we so appreciate that. That also prepares us that week for the following week, which is the National Symposium. The National Symposium this year will be held on April 22nd. It's going to be outstanding. As you know, those symposiums are theme-based, and the theme for this year for that is Zion's Camp. And you know what a great influence Zion's Camp had on the church as a whole, moving forward in a very powerful way. So it occurs in the afternoon. Starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We have 4 major presentations that are given by people who are very competent, very scholarly presentations about different phases and topics relating to Zion's Camp in this case. And then it concludes in the evening at the national office with a large dinner with a keynote speaker. Last year we had Elder Clayton, who was our speaker, and he was just outstanding, because we were focused at that particular time on the 175th anniversary of the saints entering the valley. And of course, his ancestor, and also John's ancestor, our president, was the one who wrote the hymn, Come, Come Ye Saints. And so we enjoyed very much his presentation. And typically we'll have people at that level that'll be making presentations at that symposium. It's being formulated right now, the structure for that under Nate's direction. We're excited about the work that he's doing. Moving forward, the next major month where we have a lot of things going on is in the month of July. That's when the president-elect candidates begin campaigning. You can see on July 17th, we have their Super Duper Day, beginning with, we're not sure with what. Last year we had the piano guys, which was just outstanding. Other years we had general authorities. Elder Oaks, I think, was the one preceding that. And we'll be formulating our plans for Super Duper Day in July over the next several months. Those of you who don't know what Super Duper Day means, SUPER means SUP, Sons of Utah Pioneers and Daughters of Utah Pioneers. It's a joint activity that we put together between the two organizations in conjunction with This Is the Place, and they do a tremendous amount in formulating the plans for that. It's a discounted time to enter the park. So they open the park to your families at a discounted rate, and it's just really choice. We were packed this last time, and it was a great event. So get that on your calendars and start publicizing it so that people get it down on their calendars as well, and don't schedule over it. The next item, of course, which has already previously been mentioned as well by Dan, is the Days of 47 events. We have to wait until the scheduled dates are assigned before we know what they are, but it's going to be held on July 22nd, which is the Saturday. And there will be a sunrise service, which will be a general authority that speaks there on Temple Square. And that's at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then we have the Days of 47 parade, where we sponsor hand carts. We have anywhere between 10 and 13 hand carts that we pull the whole length, the 2-mile parade, which is really a fun thing to do. And we invite any members of SUP that want to be involved in that to come up and do it and bring their family. They have to be.
There is a restriction on the age of the participants, so.
Yeah, that's just what I said.
I didn't hear, I was coughing.
Yeah, and so that's something that you ought to consider. And if you don't pull hand carts, it's still a fun thing to come up and 10 of the hand carts have labels on them of the 10 hand cart companies that were used that used hand carts to come into the valley. So they're named specifically for those different parties. And then moving on to September, as you know, that's when we have our national encampment, which will be held in St. George on September 7th through 9th. The area of southern Utah, St. George area, are putting together just a fantastic encampment. We're excited about it. We do know that they've already approached, and he has accepted, assuming he doesn't get called to some other assignment, Elder Holland, who will be one of the keynote speakers down at that event. And that's also when the transition occurs from the current president to the new president of the national organization. It's also a national board meeting. And then, of course, in October, we'll have this training that we're having right now on the dates that you see scheduled there. And you can see when our particular date will be on October 23rd next year for this training as well. And I think that's pretty much it. We have the Christmas dinner, which will be on December 6th, but that lays out the calendar for you so that you can get it on your chapter calendars, those events that you think would be of interest to your chapters. And we hope all these national events, which we're putting on, will be meaningful to you. We do them for you, for the chapters, and for our wonderful membership, so that they can have the blessings of what those can give that may not be able to be done by individual chapters. We sure appreciate all of you and appreciate your willingness to be careful of the national calendar in relation to your calendar, and want you to know that it's to support you. All we do, we're here for you, and want to do everything in our power to ensure the success of each of the chapters there. John, I'll turn the time back to you.
Thank you, Larry. Nate, you ready?
Yes.
I Well,
Well, first of all, let's, I just want to thank all of you for the trust that you placed in me during this past election. And I feel honored and privileged to be the president-elect of this wonderful organization. I have been asked this morning to spend a few moments and talk about the Chapter Excellence Award. As I just want to go through each of these items and just maybe give some tips or clues on how you might be able to qualify for them where you thought you may not be able to have qualified for them in the past. First of all, you'll notice that there are 4 major areas of recognition that we look at in order to achieve this Excellence Award. Number 1 is the Pioneer Values of Excellence. We have strengthening membership leadership excellence, and we have communication excellence, and then we have the historical preservation aspect of it. What I'd like to do is on the Chapter Excellence Award, just take a moment and go through those items. First of all, we look at those values in recognizing one or more modern pioneer from the local community each year. I'd like to say just this about that particular issue, and that is our chapter in Ogden has in the past has primarily been focused on honoring a chapter member. And we do that 2 to 3 times a year. And I think we've missed the boat on that a little bit because it's wonderful that we have people, and we do have very accomplished people where the recognition is duly deserved. However, I think that we missed the opportunity to publicize our name and our organization a little bit by recognizing others outside of our organization for their contributions to our community and for their pioneering efforts in whatever field of endeavors that they are involved in. And by recognizing those that are outside of our chapter, I think it gives us a little broader influence in our community. And one of the things associated with that has been suggested in the past is that when we have a recognition of this type in our chapter, that we give them something. And National has a wonderful award that you can present to them. There's a cost associated with that, but I think that is something that you ought to look at very carefully. But one of the suggestions in the past has also been to give them a friends and family membership, which would include a year subscription to our magazine. And then they will get an automatic renewal request. And many of them will likely act on that automatic renewal just because of the experience that they've had with the Sons of Utah Pioneers. The recognition of tomorrow's pioneers is an area that I think a lot of our chapters are doing with regards to awarding scholarships. And when we look at awarding scholarships, it appears that many of you have committees that do the screening and committees that get involved in this. And we have, in our chapter in Ogden, we included, we kind of focused the attention of it on seminary graduates. And so we have included the seminary principals and the area directors of seminaries to become involved in helping to identify the students and to do a lot of the screening associated with those scholarships. And of course, those, in order to qualify for those scholarships, they have to do an essay. And as we ask people to do essays, we have focused our attention primarily, I think, on biographies and life histories of a pioneer ancestor. And I think we need to realize that perhaps not all of our students have pioneer ancestors, and therefore there's the opportunity for them to write on frontier life or pioneer life as opposed to doing it on an ancestor. And I think we look at this as something that we ought to be giving to members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we may have students out there who may not have those pioneer ancestors, or they may have pioneer ancestors and they're not members of the church. And so
we need to take those kinds of things into consideration when we look at implementing this particular aspect of our pioneer values. And so just a cautionary thing, recognize out there that not everybody will have pioneer ancestors and that not everybody would be a member of the church. Strengthening membership, we've talked a lot about that today. And I think that as we think about leadership, we as leaders, and especially as AVPs and chapter presidents, need to set the tone. And if we are not attending our leadership meetings and becoming leadership trained, then there's no reason why we ought to expect other members of our chapter, including the presidencies and also the board members, to attend. If we're not attending these leadership sessions and setting that example, our other leaders in the organization are not going to follow and attend a lot of these meetings. And so it's critical that we set the tone and set the example. Also, I think it's important that we emphasize that with our vice presidents in our chapters, our presidents-elect in our chapters, and bring them along with us when we attend these things, and make it a point of expectation, not just as if you have time, then this is something you can do. We need to expect them to be trained and attend these training sessions. One of the requirements is to hold 8 or more chapter meetings during the course of the year, and also board meetings during the course of the year. And that's something that should be fairly easy to do. And I think most of us are doing that. Also, chapter members need to participate in 1 or more trek annually. And we've talked about some wonderful treks that have been shown to us today. But I would suggest also that treks they are not defined by renting a bus, getting 40 or 50 people on the bus and traveling a distance to go to one of these sites. Most of us have significant items and significant events and significant sites right within a very close proximity to where most of our members live. And we usually incorporate that with one of our chapter meetings that we've done here in the North area. And after our chapter meeting, we carpool to a couple of locations where there may be just local monuments that we spend the time. And just as an example of one of the ones that we did this last time, after our chapter luncheon, we simply drove to the local library, parked in their parking lot, and then did a walking tour, which was just only a block and a half long, of historic home sites in our community. We had a local planning director for the city of Ogden, who is also in charge of historical preservation in the community. And he gave a wonderful presentation on 4 or 5 major homes of families who were instrumental in the establishment of Ogden as a community. So treks don't have to be big, elaborate things. They can be very simple. They can be very local. We've done a couple of those treks in local cemeteries where we have prominent community leaders or church leaders who are buried there. And so make them simple. They don't have to be complicated. Communications excellence is one thing that is very important. We talk about recruitment and sustainment of membership a lot, and that's an area of concern. However, our communications excellence have a primary focus on contact with our members and keeping them involved and keeping them informed. And if we do that, we're going to see that they will come and attend our meetings. They will participate more fully than they would if we did not do these things in our communications aspect. Chapter newsletters are very important. And chapter newsletters don't have to be big, elaborate things. They don't have to be a trail marker quality of a newsletter. Simply a 1 or 2 page item each month or several times a year to inform the members of when our meetings are, a brief summary perhaps, and maybe a picture of one of our treks or one of our chapter meetings and who was the presenter and what did they talk about. Certainly recognizing our scholarship winners, recognizing and commenting on the 21st century pioneers that we recognize. So they don't have to be elaborate. They don't have to be complicated. Simply a 1 or 2 page newsletter is sufficient. The important thing is it gets sent out to all of our membership. And also, they don't have to be mailed in the U.S. Postal Service. With the electronic age that we have now, we can certainly do that electronically. And so you can even have a 15-page newsletter, and it doesn't cost you any more to send in the mail than a one-page newsletter, because the electronic media allows us to do that. It's also important that we support National in the Trail Marker magazine. It's interesting to me that we have about 45 chapters in the Sons of Utah Pioneers National Society. And when I look at the Trail Marker magazine, and we have 8 to 9 or 10 maybe chapters submitting trail marker articles, I think we miss a really good opportunity as chapters to toot our own horn, if you will, and to show to National some of the things that we're doing. And that not only is important for that aspect, but it also shows our members when they get the Trail Marker magazine that we are recognizing them and the things that we do, and that's getting broader exposure rather than just in our own individual chapters. So I think we ought to, as chapters, ought to emphasize getting articles into the Trail Marker as often as we can to support that activity, but also to let our members know that we are alive and well. Excuse me. Also, our local news media, it's important that we try to get articles into the media. Some of you are very successful in that. Some of us are not very successful in that, simply because of the editorial guidelines that local newspapers might have. I grew up in a community, a small community at the time in Brigham City, and if you sneezed twice, you got an article in the newspaper. And they published everything that took place in the community, all of the human interest things, all of the high school football scores, and a summary of who scored touchdowns and who didn't, who won track meets and the time that they had. And so I grew up in a very different society and time period than what we receive today with some of our newspapers. Newspapers today subscribe to national and international news media outlets. And so that's basically all they publish, and do very little independent reporting, and even less when it comes to community affairs and good news stories. So some of us have a harder time getting them published. And so therefore, it's not a requirement that you get them published, but it is a requirement that you at least submit them to the newspaper or some other media outlet to advertise what you're doing in your chapter. The last item there is the chapter members and Pioneer Magazine gifts. And if you look at the requirements on the chart there, if you have a chapter of, say, 80 people, you might only be required to demonstrate that you have given gifts of the Pioneer Magazine a dozen times or so. And that is very simple to do, especially if you have a number of children like I do. I am able to satisfy our chapter's requirement by simply giving subscriptions to my 6 children, and one other member in the chapter does it for his 6 children, and we've already met that requirement. So look at that opportunity. I kind of view this as a Christmas gift, if you will. And so every year I give my children one of these. And this year, it was pointed out that for an extra $5, I can give them a friends and family membership in this society. And so I'm going to do that this year in hopes that when they get their renewals from National, that they will go ahead and renew and become members of the National Society wherever they live. Now, many of my children don't live in places where they have chapters. And so they can still become a member of the international chapter, if you will, and participate with us in that regard. The last section is historical preservation excellence. Establish one approved new monument or historical marker or marker reconstruction of an existing monument. We talk about, we just had the Cedar City folks. I say we've got 80 monuments down there. We have about 25 monuments in the Ogden area. And so it's very easy for us to do that. And one of the things that the chapter in Ogden is involved in right now is a monument walk, one of our parks. And we're doing that in conjunction with a number of partners who are going to help put monuments there. And the thing that is interesting about these monuments is there are 501c3 charitable organizations out there who are very willing and even eager to donate money and funds to these kinds of activities. And we here in the Weber County area, we have a program set up that's called Recreational Arts and Museums and Parks that take a little bit of the tax money that comes in to the county every year, and it's dedicated to those activities, and they take applications for that. And so through that process, through individual donors and through foundation donations, we have raised over $100,000 to kick off this monument walk in one of our parks here in the South Ogden area that'll have 4 or 5 historical markers related to the founding of this area from the not just the pioneers, but also the pre-pioneer activities of things like John C. Fremont, Jim Bridger, the Shoshone Indian tribe, and others like that. So that's something that's very doable if someone is willing just to put forth the effort to garner those funds and establish those monuments. You can also clean and repair or improve one. I have a marker just 3 blocks from my home, and I go down there with my shovel and make sure the weeds are cleaned away from it, that the bird droppings are scrubbed off of it. And it's a very simple thing to do once or twice a year, and that qualifies under that category. Maintaining a pioneer structure, we have some of those here, but they are all under the oversight of the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers. So we don't do very well in that area, but we do have all of these others that we can do. Organize members to accomplish a specific project in SUP library. I'm sure John Smith would be very pleased if all of you would get somebody organized in your chapters to help there. We've had people do that in our chapter in the past, and it's been very beneficial to them as individuals as well as to the library. And then other historical preservation projects with written permission from the National Executive Council. And I can almost guarantee you, if you come and present a proposal for the establishment of a monument, that we're going to look very favorably on that. So those are just a number of clues or hints that you can do to qualify in these different categories for the Award of Excellence. And as was stated a little bit earlier, if we're working to achieve these items in the awards program that we have at National, you're going to be a much more successful chapter. You're going to generate more enthusiasm in your chapters. People are going to have responsibilities that they're going to take ownership for and become actively involved in these things. And you're going to be a stronger and better chapter because of your efforts in this area. Even if you don't qualify for the award, you're going to be a much better chapter, even if you only qualify for 50% or 75% of those things. And it gives you a target to look forward to in the coming years. That's my presentation, President. So turn the time back to you.
Thank you, Nate. Derek, are you feeling well enough to give your presentation?
President, I'm here. Thank you for that. Nate covered most of the public relations talking points that they had asked me to speak on. One thing that I would add is that I think it would be worthwhile for chapter leadership to sit down, have a meeting to talk about their public relations plan and to set some specific public relations goals for the year so that there's some targets that they're working towards. One of the things that, in addition to the type of media relations, submitting articles to local news organizations, including a lot of communities now have news websites that may be more responsive than a newspaper because of publishing restrictions and guidelines. But something else that I think is an important part of a public relations program for a chapter would include community relations, where there may be opportunities for a chapter to develop relationships with local organizations by finding ways for the chapter to be of service. Maybe it's at a local soup kitchen or anyway, you think about that and talk about that and see if there isn't a way for your chapter to become involved with the community at some level that can become a catalyst for establishing stronger community relations. That's one of my thoughts. The other factor that certainly comes into play when you talk about public relations for your chapter these days is social media element. And I know that that's not one of our strengths necessarily for our demographic, but it certainly can be a powerful thing if there is like a chapter Facebook page that is maintained regularly, that promotes events, that sends out invitations, that if you took time to, after the chapter meeting, to include a write-up and throw some photos up on the site, promote the scholarship winners, the things that maybe you can't get published elsewhere, even though you're submitting them, ought to go up on a social media platform, so that at least it's captured and at least it's a record. You know, one of the things that I think it's important for us to recognize is that we're an organization that is in place to recognize and value our history as a people, our pioneer heritage. But one of the responsibilities that I think that we have, particularly as chapter leadership, is to effectively capture our current history and to promote that using the tools that are available to us. And so I think that that social media becomes an important piece to that. Now, having covered those things, Nate talked about the trail marker submissions and the importance of newsletters and all of those things that are absolutely critical. I don't have any other comments to make. When I was asked if I could take a few minutes, one of the things that I was specifically asked is to talk a little bit about SUP Online. I don't have a lot of comments about SUP Online at this point either. We recently conducted a survey about SUP Online. The results of that survey has been compiled and provided to the executive committee for their review. I know that they've looked at it and are talking about it. And one of the things that we're hopeful that we can maybe clarify the role that SUP Online plays for the Sons of Utah pioneers generally. So hoping to get some direction from leadership about what form SUP Online takes moving forward. I don't know if any of you have any questions for me about SUP Online, or if
I have a question.
Go ahead.
During the last two presentations, I was on my iPhone and I went to the SUP website. And the two items I was looking for, you had a one-page calendar that you've shown on the screen for 2023. I went to SUP Online and the only calendar items there were in 2020 and 2021. They're not showing anywhere, that hasn't been updated. The next question I had is, you just gave a presentation on chapter excellence and chapter recognition. I had never seen those documents. I went online. I tried to find those documents during your entire presentation. I couldn't find any of those documents. How do I get that information?
Did you go on SUP 1847?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And, I looked under calendar. I looked under recognition. I couldn't find those documents. And I've spent about 30 minutes now looking, trying to find those 3 documents, and I couldn't find them.
When you go to the home page, you'll see a list of items that go across the page, and click on chapter or chapters. And then you'll go down to leadership, and then you just continue to scroll down and you'll get down to all of those forms. And at the very bottom of those, you'll find some the forms that we were just talking about.
Does that help you, Les?
I'm there now looking, trying to find it.
Okay, Les, I sent out the packet of forms that to all of our members, and they are part of that packet.
Okay.
On the 1847 website, if you go to chapters and you scroll to where it says chapter resources, which is the section right underneath the map, then there is a number of links. One of them says training, forms, and documents. And if you click on that, then you can go scroll down to 4 chapters, and there's your chapter excellence awards and guidelines.
Okay, how about the calendar? I'm on the SUP online right now. It has a link called calendar. Okay, I click on calendar. I want to know what's coming up during the coming year.
I think that you'll find the 2022 calendar on there, what's left of it. The 2023 is yet to be completed and online.
The point I'm making is if I saw a 1-page document that I could plug in my whole year on my calendar. I'm not talking for myself. I'm talking for every member of the SUP. So I could plug it in for the entire year, 1 page like you just put online.
Exactly. The 2023 calendar is preliminary. It will be going online in the next week or 2.
It hasn't been published online.
Has not been published yet.
Okay, but I don't want to go through. I don't want to go through each month trying to fit. I want to have a 1-page document that I could print and then I could enter into my calendar.
Listen.
We will make sure that you have a 1-page thing, Les,
Thank
some
you.
way or another.
That's all
Whether I have to scan it and email it to you or not, we'll make sure you have one. How's that?
Thank you.
But at this point, it's preliminary. Subject to change.
Well, you say
We publish it after it's complete. So
yeah, you say don't schedule over it. I'm scheduling out already into the next year with my business.
Well, we'll make sure that you get one.
Thanks.
John?
Which John?
John
Yeah.
Clayton.
Yes.
Dave Isom here in Hurricane. I had a couple of comments on the calendar.
Mhm.
I don't know what you got. I don't want to take the time that you need, but I had a couple of comments. So if you got another presentation, let's go with that.
This is your meeting. We will adjust our presentations to meet what you guys need.
Okay, when Larry is presenting on the calendar, I'd suggest that when you submit that 1-page calendar that he presented there, that you highlight the days that none of the chapters should schedule over a national event.
Make them bold.
Make them bold or highlight them and note that those should not be scheduled over by chapter events.
that would be easy to do.
The other question I had, in October, the AVP training takes place in October. I know that we used to have that in November, and today, for example, I know there's a number of our board are out, especially the younger ones. Today is the beginning of the deer hunt, the general hunt. And I don't know if it'd be better to move back to the 1st or 2nd week in November when it's colder and there's less activities going on. But just a thought.
It's a good thought, but then you impact pheasant hunting. So
Yeah,
you can't make everybody happy.
I know.
So,
I understand that. I understand.
and that's part of the reason we want to record it so that we can, so that those that have other commitments can go to do that.
Right.
You know, talking on that line, and it goes back to some of the things, and I'm going to step over you for a minute, John. So forgive me.
Got it.
Is years ago, I had a stake president who decided it was prudent to have a stake temple day on the opening day of deer hunt. This was probably 40 years ago, when still a lot of people, and I guess there still are a lot, that could go out and they were providing the meat for their families. And it caused a lot of controversy among the people. There were several of the individuals within our stake and friends of mine that elected not to go on the deer hunt and do as a stake president, directed or asked, and they have been richly blessed for their commitment to doing that. And I think the same thing would hold true with our individuals here if they would take the opportunity to do some of the things that are presented to them. They'd be richly blessed. So just a side story. John, can you take a couple minutes?
I'll be glad to do so. Just a couple of things that I'd like to cover financially. We're coming up to a point where we're going to, in the next 30 days, invoicing for national dues for the bulk of the members. We also have put out to the chapters, each of the chapters, a request if they would like us to invoice along with those their chapter dues. We have received a number of those, but we need to know from the rest of you if you would like us to invoice national for your chapter dues with the national dues. We'd be glad to do so. Those they'll be invoiced in the next 30 to 60 days are those that are on a yearly basis. Those that will be invoiced at their anniversary date. At that point, we will also invoice those chapter dues that are for chapters that have requested us to do so. So you should have all your chapter dues invoiced at the same time if we do it for you. A couple of things. Inflation is hitting us, and we know that it's going to be hitting the chapters if it hasn't already. Notified us, several of the chapters are raising their chapter dues considerably, some of them almost 150% this year. We need to caution you to pay attention to the inflation of and the burden upon your members of financial. We'd like you to be able to have the dues that you need, but be cautious about it. We have, because of inflation, had the necessity of increasing the subscription price of the Pioneer magazine. It was $25 for 1 year, $45 for a 2-year subscription. Our magazine in the past has been about $4.60 for each magazine that we print. This last year, it has gone to over $6 because of inflation, the cost of printing, cost of materials, everything like that. So we have had to raise the price of the magazine from the $25 for 1 year up to $30 for 1 year, and from $45 for 2 years up to $55 for 2 years. So if anybody asks you what happened, you'll know what happened. We're not, last time we raised the price of the magazine, we also increased the price of the national dues, which we have no intentions on doing at this time. We have let me get this straight here. I want to share the screen. Two things that I would like to bring to your attention. We have had a program, the National Heritage Sustaining Member membership. It is the 5th category of membership that we have in our bylaws. First of all, we have the Family and Friends Initiatory, which is for new members. Then we have the annual membership, which is for all the rest of the membership. Then we have the life membership, which is a one-time payment or a 2-member payment. And then we have the associate membership, which is a special membership category for our widows of our members. We also have had on our bylaws the National Heritage Sustaining Membership, where a member can become a sustaining membership by having an amount drawn from their credit card or their bank account and directly into our account at National. There are several advantages to this. It's a special membership category. You receive a certificate and a membership card stating such. There are the original criteria when we started this about 5 years ago was to the commitment to arrange a monthly SUP automatic withdrawal from a member's credit card or bank account. The minimum monthly account draw was with the option of 25, including $50 and higher. Out of this, if it's on a regular basis, it pays your members yearly annual national dues. The monthly payment that we started with of a personal payment from a check has been discontinued because it became too consuming for our office staff to follow up on a monthly basis of delinquent payments. So we have allowed for one payment annually per year, which is quite a few people are doing that. Most of them are paying by check. You have in your packets that were sent to you, and there's also this form is online. If you'd like to become a National Sustaining member, please take a look at it, fill it out, and we'll be glad to do that for you. And it will also pay your annual national dues. We also have our Do Something Monumental program, which is a retirement and counseling help for those of you that would like to take advantage of that under the direction of Steve Crewman, our one of our financial advisors and one of our AVPs. Do we have any questions? If not, John, that's it for me.
Thanks, John. You're getting a chance to listen to me for a couple of minutes. You know, if you continue to do what you always did, you can continue to get what you always got. So in an effort to stretch our wings and to do something a little different, with the direction and aid of my fellow executive board directors, which you can see I have excellent people. I've got Nate and Larry and Tom and John are all super advisors. We have decided that we need to have a vision of the Sons of the Utah Pioneers that would extend beyond 1 year to a 5-year vision, and centering on 3 or 4 individual items within that vision. It's interesting that you have AVPs have hit on almost every one of those areas that we want to use as our emphasis. The first area we want to do, and our vision is to have our membership increase to 2,500 within the next 5 years. And you say, well, that doesn't sound like very much, and it's an achievable goal. That's what we want to have, is achievable goals. But you also have to remember that we're going to have a lot of attrition in that time. So in actuality, it's going to probably be about 200 members per year that we're looking to achieve. The next one, which Derek brought up, was we want to put our face out more publicly with the public and do everything that we can to be more recognizable, not just be a wallflower on a lot of things, whether it be with parades or help sponsoring activities or getting our name in the social medias or the newspaper or things like that. And we'd like to make a constant striving to do that and to increase that visibility of the Sons of Utah Pioneers. With that, I think it will help our membership drive. The third one, and this is kind of a lofty goal, and I know we can't achieve it in 1 year, 5 years, might take 10 or 15, but I'd like to see us have an endowment fund such that the interest we learn off that endowment fund will be such that we can fund the SUP off the interest for the next year. And we know where we're going and what we've got money for. And then the third one is going back to you guys and your chapters. We want to be a greater support and greater emphasis on the chapters and the individual members in the chapters to help them become stronger and stronger pioneers. And we're going to be looking towards not just the AVPs and the presidents, but everybody in every chapter to help us, to guide us and give us guidance and direction on these goals. As we go on these goals, we want to keep in mind the mission statement of the Sons of the Pioneers, to continue to remember the heritage of our forefathers and to present these and take these information down to the youth in whatever way we can. I know that we are straddling probably 3 different generation gaps of doing this. We've got the old guys, which are not as computer literate as other guys, other individuals. We've got myself and my age group that's kind of got their feet in both sides and not good in either end. And then we've got the other side that are completely literate. So we're going to be trying to come up with ways to merge those and facilitate each one of those areas as part of our missions, as part of our goals and vision. Our time is just about well spent, Harold, but I would like to thank everybody that's participated, thank the AVPs for the time and effort that they put in putting this together. Very well presented, very well done. Thank my staff for everything they've done and putting together the calendar and the other things, and Tom's input and John's, and particularly the presidents for the time and effort that they spend down on the local level. You're where the rubber meets the road, and we're where we want to be most effective. I thank you guys, and I love you, and I love the pioneering history that we have. And I turn this meeting back over to Harold to finish it off.
Thank you very much. I was just going to thank the same bunch that you just did. Especially wanted to thank David Isom and Dan Adams and Derek Rowley. I've had trouble with prayers today. Sometimes you don't have a prayer, and both my prayers have finked out on us or gone to funerals, whatever like that. But anyway, Royce, could I get you to give the benediction, please?
I'd be glad to. I have a question for,
Okay.
well, I have 2 comments. Nate, we have a member that has just moved to Ogden named Jay Jones. You need to tap into him and take advantage of him. And in terms of the 84 monuments that we submitted from our monuments committee, we'd love feedback from National as to things that you like about it and things you don't like about it, and anything we can do to improve that. We have about another 50 that we're working on.
Thanks.
Father in heaven, we're thankful for the opportunity to participate in this training session. We're thankful for the efforts, the volunteer efforts of all of those that are involved in Sons of Utah Pioneers. We pray that thou will inspire us as to things that we can do to help honor the heritage that we have, the wonderful heritage that we have as a result of these pioneers, and that we can pass that heritage on to the youth, that the youth might learn how important it is to learn of the past, and that if we don't learn of the past, we end up repeating the mistakes, and that what we want to do is repeat the positive things that have happened and the growth. We pray that thou will be with those that put the work and effort into preparing the materials presented, and know that they know how much we appreciate it. And we say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you again, everybody. Thanks, Nate, Larry,
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank you.
Turn us off, John. We're ready to go home. Saturday chores. Got to go get.
Nobody wants some foyer time, huh? Okay, we'll close it out.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
night.
Harold,
Or goodbye.
thank you for everything. You did a great job.
Yeah, excellent job.